Please join me in welcoming today's opening keynote, Soraya Benchikh, President, Europe at Diageo. Soraya will be interviewed by Shoptalk's Senior Vice President of Content, Krystina Gustafson.
That's a tough act to follow, but thank you everyone for joining us for day 2 of Shoptalk Europe. And Soraya, thank you so much for joining us on the keynote stage.
Thank you very much, Krystina. It's a pleasure to be here and get the opportunity over the next couple of days to meet so many of our partners.
Yes, great. Well, let's dive right in. And I thought a great place to start the conversation today would just be, talking a little bit about you. You were appointed as President of Europe for Diageo back in January 2023, so relatively still new to the role. However, you've also been with the business for about 2.5 years at this point, so I'm sure you came in with a ton of ideas and seeing a lot of opportunities for the company. So why don't we start by just having you ground us a little bit in what your key priorities for the business are going forward?
Okay. Thank you for that. As you know, I started in January, so since taking up position, I've been really pretty much on the road, getting out there to visit our teams in different markets all across Europe. Been fascinated to see how much passion we have, all of our teams have for our brands and for our customers. And really, although European markets are very different in nature and each has its own challenges and opportunities, there are 3 opportunities that really shone out that are a little bit a common theme across all the markets. The first one is that our consumers, it's really a consumer trend that we're seeing, have been seeing for a while, but is accelerating, is that our consumers are looking to drink better, but not more. And that lends itself to premiumization. They're looking for more premium offers, but also they're looking for wellness options as well. And the second area, trend that we see with our consumers as well, is our consumers are becoming more and more sustainability savvy. So they really are caring about the impact that they're having on the planet and want to see us and our partners take demonstrable actions on sustainability. And last but not least, on both of these areas, the importance in all of the markets that I've visited has been highlighted is the importance of our partnerships, that we really can't attain our objectives either on satisfying our consumers or our sustainability objectives without working very closely with our partners to create more value and care about the communities and the impact that we have on the planet.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I really want to zero in on one that you mentioned, though, being premiumization. It's interesting. Clearly, I come from the United States, where that is, such a big trend already. I'm curious to hear why you think that's such a big opportunity for you in Europe, especially at this moment in time.
Okay. No, it's actually it's a very interesting phenomenon that I've been looking at with the teams in Europe, and I think it's rooted, particularly in our industry, and what I mentioned earlier, which is that consumers are looking to drink better but not more. Yep. And I wanted actually, reflecting on when you asked me the question on premiumization before, I wanted to use a quote, if I may.
Sure. Yeah.
That was in a blog of our consumer planning director who's responsible for insights. And this is what he says when he's studying the effects of volatility on consumer sentiment, behavior, and spending. He says, consumers prioritize the moments that matter. And when these moments come, people want them to be fabulous. We're sick of zooming in our tracksuits. We want to socialize in style. And this desire for specialness is what creates the opportunity for premiumization. This, together with the growing trends toward moderation, mean that more and more consumers share our wish for a world in which we drink better, but not more. So moments really, really matter to our consumers, and they are looking to premiumize. And I think this illustrates the polarity, if you like, between the challenging times that we're facing and the trend of premiumization that we have. And that is really backed up by the numbers.
Yep.
If you look at our category in spirits, basically the super premium plus, which is what we call Reserve and Diageo, is growing at 3 times the rate of other price tiers in the market. And if we look at our North American neighbors, their super premium plus or Reserve category used to be at 28% of the total market and now has accelerated over the last 2 years to be 42%. Now, when I compare this to what we have in Europe the Reserve category is only 10%. Yeah. So 10% plays 42%. That's massive headroom for growth. And really, it's a massive opportunity. Premiumization is a massive opportunity for value creation for ourselves and for our partners.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I feel like the only thing I will argue with on that quote is I feel like I can drink premium products in my sweats. I don't really feel like I need to choose one or the other, but I think that makes a lot of sense. And it really, I think, ties well to what you're talking about, sort of these confluent trends that are coming together with also consumers looking to drink a little bit less, going for low or no alcohol options. So that's great. Let's shift gears a little bit, though, and talk about digital, because, of course, the Shoptalk audience, that's sort of their bread and butter. Yeah. It's been really interesting sitting in my seat, doing these shows across geographies across the past couple of years and really sort of seeing the evolution of how FMCG companies approach digital. I think for a long time, everyone was very hot on direct-to-consumer. I think there's still definitely an opportunity for there as it pertains to, sort of marketing, brand building, getting to know your consumer. But we are also starting to see a lot of companies lean a lot more into their retail partnerships as they're thinking about their digital strategy, whether it's, pure play retailers, traditional partners, marketplaces, whoever it might be. So I'd love to just kind of get your thoughts on Diageo's digital priorities and sort of how you can bring this premiumization, also just kind of meeting customers where they are to life in a digital format.
No, absolutely. Look, I mean, our real priority is to be where consumers expect us to be. And the channel mix, be it D2C or grocery.com, etc., is going to depend pretty much market by market across Europe, depending on the level of development of e-commerce. But I think the challenge and the opportunity lies in how we show up online. Often, I would say more times than not, the first point of contact of our consumer with our brands is online. Mm-hmm. So it is very important that this is a premium experience. And unfortunately, most brands at the moment are only doing the basics. And hence, this is where the opportunity comes. So I think for our retail partners to really be able to compete with other e-commerce channels, it is very, very important that we work together to premiumize the experience. And this can be done in a number of ways. We can simplify the experience for the shopper with examples like if they're looking for a cocktail, with one click of a button, they put all the ingredients in their basket. Or even there is basic enhancements that we can do. I mean, we have experience with this. We know basic enhancements to imagery can uplift sales by up to 26%. We know embedding videos can uplift sales by 36%. So there's quite a lot we can do. What is absolutely critical is that we partner together to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And we have a couple of these partnerships going at the moment with Tesco in Ireland, with Carrefour globally. And I think these partnerships are absolutely critical to unlock the power of data and create value going forward.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's really interesting, too, to hear you talk about the video, because that's something we've been talking about quite a bit at Shoptalk, and just sort of, where does live stream commerce fit in this picture versus, video content that you can access at any point in time. So really interesting to hear you talk about that within the context of delivering a premium experience. I want to stick with this partnership theme. We've talked about a couple of different ways you're working with your partners. We've talked about digital. We've talked about premiumization. I want to kind of pivot a little bit and talk about the other form of partnership, which is important to you, which is sustainability. Could you tell me a little bit about the opportunities that you see there to work with your retail partners?
Yeah, look, sustainability is an area I'm very passionate about, and it is a priority for us in Europe. And I think it's a fantastic area to partner with our retailers. look, we all have very ambitious sustainability targets. Yeah, we have our Society 2030 pledge, where we have targets on direct emissions, indirect emissions. We aim to be net zero. We want to reduce indirect emissions by 50%. We have water targets, etc. I think all of our partners have ambitious targets as well on sustainability. We are looking to invest over $1 billion in our sustainability programs over that period, which makes it all the more important for us to focus on value creation, but also to work together to aim to reach these sustainability targets. And I can give you a couple of examples. We're currently partnering with a couple of retailers and our on-trade outlets as well to explore circular packaging, for instance, or new technologies in terms of packaging. We're experimenting to see the response, not just from the customer, but from the consumer, bringing it to shelf. And then we're as a colleague of mine always says to me, we're building the plane as we fly. Yep. So we test and learn, and it's a very exciting area, and it's an area that we definitely need to partner together to crack.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm sure a lot of people in the room can relate to the flying the plane while you're still learning how to do things, so can certainly appreciate that. It's interesting, too. I know you're talking about this test and learn mentality and sort of the ambitious targets you have as well as your partners. I mean, do you think about sort of working with partners that are working towards similar goals to you? I mean, there's so many opportunities out there to make the business more sustainable. So is that kind of how you think about it, or how do those partnerships kind of come to life?
Yeah, I think, look, it's very, very important when you're innovating, right? The partnership really, they bring the shelf, we bring the brands, okay, and we bring the innovations. But there is no point in us turning up and saying, here's an innovation I worked on earlier, there you go, and then try to do the sell job. Yeah. If you work on co-creation, I think, they have the experience of the shopper. I was recently talking to one of the retailers, and they were telling me, which is something that we've long believed, that sustainability cannot come at the cost of quality and taste, for example. This has been their experience. And therefore, we were exploring different options of how, what kind of ingredients we can put in our product and how we can innovate to become more sustainable. It becomes superbly powerful, because then we have much better chance of success when we're actually on shelf. So that's why these partnerships are critical. And we are working towards a common objectives, because we both, first of all, the consumer is very aware and conscious, and I think that the term is eco-activist. We have more and more eco-activists in Europe. They want this, but also we all have very similar targets in terms of sustainability to attain, and we can be far more effective and powerful by working together. Yeah,
it makes sense too how you're talking about sort of going up the value chain and not making those decisions too far down the road. It was interesting in the U.S. a couple of weeks ago, I don't know, I've lost track of time, but PVH actually just announced that they're going to be working with their vendor partners and actually giving them discounts on loans if they're sort of working toward the same ESG goals. So just really interesting to see how this is playing out in different aspects of the industry with different forms of partnerships to achieve these goals. I know we're starting to run short on time, but I want to stick with this theme of purpose really quickly here, because I know when you think about purpose, it isn't only as it pertains to sustainability, it's also in terms of equity and inclusion. The latest stat that I have here is that 60% of your executive board is women, and over 30% of your senior leadership team is women. It is also an issue that's incredibly important to us here at Shoptalk. It's hard. It's really hard work, though. I'd love to hear just your insights for companies that want to hit those goals, want to come close to that, but are just really struggling with the how.
Yeah, no, it's a very good question that we often get asked about in Diageo. Look, D&I is embedded into our organization. It's part of our Society 2030. We're aiming to be leaders, basically, in diversity. And our targets are to attain 50% female representation and 45% ethnic representation. And we've made massive strides in. As you probably know, in July now we will have, Deborah will become our CEO, and she'll be one of the few FTSE 100 female CEOs. 60% of our board, as you quite rightly say, are female. We have had a number of accolades in the FTSE Leaders Review. I think we are leaders in female board representation, number 2 in Equileap, and I could go on. But really, at the heart of it, D&I is embedded into our company everywhere. It's not just part of our Society 2030, but it really is in our performance metrics. It's cascaded throughout the organization. And when I say performance metric, it is as closely followed and measured as any financial or share metric. But what I think makes a huge difference in Diageo is the inclusion part. We really work very, very hard at inclusion. So we have some activities like, for example, Ink Week, which happens once a year, which is a week that is dedicated to talks. We have inspirational talks or trainings on inclusion. We have very, very progressive work practices in terms of flexible working. We're extremely flexible. You will see when you walk into our office spaces, we have a lot of collaborative space to entice people to come into the office with purpose and collaborate on that basis. And we have 26-week parental leave, basically that's extended to both females and males in the workforce. There's a number of really progressive working practices that encourage inclusion. But I think that the part that has touched me personally, which is representation. I think whenever we all apply for jobs, and when, as you quite rightly say, I joined Diageo just under 3 years ago. Whenever you apply for jobs, you basically go on the website and you have a look at what their leadership looks like. And here you're struck because there's so many women, and not only women from different ethnic backgrounds. And now having joined, it's really lived to the promise. They've all got different styles, different networks. And so representation really matters in attracting talent, but also retaining talent. And just one little correction, we're 37% senior leaders, female leaders in Diageo. So we're well on our way, hopefully, to reach that 50%.
No, that's great. That's really fantastic to hear. And I think, two big takeaways that I have from that are measure, measure, measure. But I think even beyond that, you talking about it really being embedded within the organization, specific markets, specific teams. This isn't just sort of an HR metric. It's something that each and every one of your teams really has to abide by. And I think that's fantastic, tangible advice that people can take back to their organizations. Well, we are down to just a couple of minutes left, so I would love to sort of stick with this this personal note. What's really interesting about you, and perhaps folks in the audience aren't aware, you've actually led a number of businesses that were in need of a very large turnaround. Luckily not the case here today, but I think it has probably given you a really solid tool belt for how to manage and inspire teams in tumultuous times like those that we might be in today. So what's sort of your biggest piece of advice or leadership lesson for folks that are looking to lead a team at this moment in retail?
Yeah, great question, and something that I think is on the mind of every leader when you broach a new organization or when you're hit challenging times. And I think having led different teams across different geographies with different cultures, the one thing that is common everywhere I go is the need for connection and purpose. And I think it is very, very important to establish authentic connections with your team because it creates a very, very strong bond that allows you to overcome these challenging times when they come. And purpose is equally important. In Diageo, our purpose is to celebrate life every day, everywhere. And you'll find our purpose is deeply anchored within our teams. So when you hit challenging times, I think it's very, very important to double down on connection, call it as it is, share the failures with your team, own it all together.
Your failures as well?
My failures as well. I actually try to make a point to share more of this, the successes. because the team has got to know that you've got their back and we're all in it together. But also celebrate the successes. It is very, very important to celebrate every single milestone. That will be my advice to leaders. And having your culture really anchored in purpose is superbly important because it gives them a guide throughout these. And I'll just finish off by saying that in Diageo, this is a recipe that's really worked for us. We've recently had our value survey, and when we talked to the providers, they were astonished that in these challenging times, most companies are seeing a reduction in their engagement scores. Our engagement scores have hit a record high, and we've actually improved by 6 points.
That's great. Well, what a wonderful place to wrap. Thank you so much for joining us, Soraya, and thank you all for joining us as well.
Thank you very much.